Hi, friends, and welcome to the Life Optimizer podcast, where science meets everyday life and where we believe that tiny changes lead to a whole new you. My name is Viktoriya. I am a Yale trained midwife, women's health provider, and hormone nerd and enthusiast here to really bring you cutting edge research based information to help you improve how you feel. Today, I have a great episode for you, and it's all about the connection between our hormones and our gut and what to do to fix it. Okay, so this is especially important if you're experiencing symptoms like bloating, hormonal acne, fatigue, irregular cycles, mood swings, maybe your sleep is disrupted, or even if you're having brain fog. We're going to go deeper than just surface level wellness talk. We're going to dive into the pathophysiology because I love it. Because in order to really get to the root of it, we have to understand how it all happens. We're going to talk about clinical research. We're going to talk about specific steps to help you heal your gut and, improve how you feel. So grab a tea or take me for a walk and let's get into it. Before we begin, I do want to ask you, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel and helps me continue to do the work. And it's an easy way for you to support what I'm doing. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's get into it. So, why is your gut and hormones, why are those two things connected? So, they're deeply connected. And we need to understand why, going back into that pathophysiology, because when we understand why, we can fix the things that are off, okay, and really fix so many symptoms. So let's talk about it. Your gut is really a key player in your overall health. So many pesky symptoms are caused by gut dysfunction. And we can see these connections by looking at how the gut is connected to everything else in your body. So the gut is connected to the rest of the body by the enteric nervous system. It has the Galt immune system, that it affects the estrobolome and again, the overall gut function. Okay. So let's talk about all of those things to see why your gut and your hormones are so connected to one another. When we say your gut is, everything that helps you digest your food. But when we talk about it here, we're really talking about the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. Okay. So those three things are key players for what we're talking about today. And then we're also going to talk about the other organs that affect all of this. But in general, most of the time we're going to be talking about stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and how the other organs play into it. So that's what we mean when I say the gut. So the gut has a nervous system of its own, which is crazy, right? So we've heard of the fight or flight, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The gut has what's called the enteric nervous system, a nervous system of its own. And sometimes people call it the second brain, and I'll tell you why. So, the enteric nervous system is a complicated, complex network of neurons in the walls of the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so in the walls of that small, large intestine, there is a network of neurons, and this network of neurons controls and regulates digestive functions independently from the central nervous system. So, independently from that parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So, that's a big deal, right? I don't know if you knew that before. But that's a big deal that there's this other branch that completely works on and controls your gut function. So the enteric nervous system controls your gut independently from the rest and digest, right? That maybe you've heard of, right? The vagus nerve and how that helps you digest your food. So the function of the enteric nervous system is to control three big things. One is GI motility. That is how quickly food moves through your gastrointestinal tract. The second one is the secretion of digestive enzymes, hormones, and mucus into the intestinal tract. And the third function of the enteric nervous system is to control blood flow to and from the digestive organs, which is very important for nutrient absorption and your digestive health as a whole. Okay. So the gut nervous system, or this enteric nervous system, communicates directly with the HPA axis, that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that affects so many things in our body, right? So the HPA axis is a system that regulates the body's response to stress and influences many physiologic processes like digestion, like your immune response, like your mood, like energy. So, what else does your gut affect? Over 70% of your immune system resides in the gut. Yes, you heard that right. Over 70% of your immune system. So, what is this system? This system is called the GALT, which is the gut associated lymphoid tissue, which makes it a key modulator of systemic inflammation. So that immune system plays a role in causing or triggering systemic inflammation or not, depending on how your gut is doing. Okay, so that's how the gut is connected to inflammation potentially all over your body. So how can systemic inflammation be triggered from the gut? You guessed it. I just said it, right? Through intestinal permeability. If there is intestinal permeability, or maybe you've heard of what's called leaky gut sometimes, that can trigger systemic inflammation, right? So what happens is when intestinal permeability develops, lipopolysaccharides enter the bloodstream. What are lipopolysaccharides? Okay, thank you for asking. Lipopolysaccharides are a component of the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria that are highly inflammatory. Our body recognizes that part or those pieces of the bacteria as foreign, and that triggers a huge immune response to say, hey, this isn't part of me, this isn't good, I don't like that pieces of bacteria or bacteria are in here, and it triggers an immune response. So when there is intestinal permeability, and we'll talk in more detail about what exactly that looks like, um, things that are not supposed to get into our bloodstream do get into our bloodstream. And so that triggers that GALT immune system to mount a response against it. So maybe you've heard of like H. pylori. H. pylori is one of these bacteria that can trigger this response. So when these bacterial components enter your bloodstream from having that intestinal permeability, it triggers a cytokine release. Cytokines are inflammatory chemicals that help your body trigger more and more steps in the immune response to really kill or get rid of the foreign object or foreign thing that has come through into the body and the body sees as something that it needs to get rid of. And so this cytokine release triggers can lead to many other changes. The cytokine release causes changes in cortisol regulation. It causes impaired insulin signaling and even changes in thyroid function. Okay. So what else? Gut microbiota influence the estrobolome. The estrobolome is a set of bacterial genes that are involved in metabolizing estrogen. When you have too much bacteria with genes that code for an enzyme that metabolize estrogen, the enzyme is expressed more so, and what it causes is that excreted estrogen gets recirculated by that enzyme. That enzyme takes the estrogen that your body marked for excretion, changes it, and your body reabsorbs it. And so what can happen is it can give you symptoms of estrogen dominance, so things like PMS, heavy periods, or even fibroids, and we're going to talk in more detail about that. So what else can happen? You can have impaired gut function. And what that means is you can have poor absorption of the things that you're eating. So, especially affected are zinc, B vitamins, magnesium, and selenium. So, these are essential for hormone production, detoxification. They're essential for neurotransmitter synthesis. So, if your gut is impaired, then it doesn't do a great job at absorbing the minerals and nutrients that you are trying to absorb. Okay. So let's talk about exactly how your gut is connected to hormones and hormone synthesis production and how your hormones can be affected by all the things that we talked about. Okay. So really there are four big hormonal sort of buckets or categories that your gut is connected to. So these big hormonal buckets are, estrogen metabolism, cortisol metabolism, your thyroid metabolism, and insulin function and metabolism. So these 4 big buckets of hormones that we know are connected to essentially every cell in the body are affected by what your gut is doing. And this is why it's so important for us to understand gut function and for us to be able to affect it in a positive way, and even identify some of the symptoms that are being caused by impaired gut function. Okay, so let's talk about it. So estrogen and the estrobolome. I talked about it a little bit, but let me just go through a little more detail so that it's clear. Certain gut bacteria cause excess beta glucuronidase production, and that causes recirculation of estrogen. The estrobolome is a set of genes in gut bacteria that code for enzymes that help process estrogen. And this happens through the beta glucuronidase enzyme. Normally, the liver conjugates estrogen in a process where a molecule like glucuronic acid or a sulfate molecule is attached to the estrogen, and that marks the estrogen for excretion. It's excreted, travels through the gastrointestinal tract, and is then excreted. So that's a normal process that's happening all the time. Well, if gut bacteria produce too much of this enzyme, this beta glucuronidase, what can happen is those conjugated and excreted estrogen molecules get reactivated and reabsorbed instead of being excreted. Okay. And that can lead to symptoms of estrogen dominance. And these symptoms are, again, PMS, heavy periods, fibroids, breast tenderness, weight gain around your hips or thighs, and even jawline acne. Okay. And a 2017 review in the Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism found elevated beta glucuronidase levels in women with endometriosis and fibroids. Okay. So, again, talking about that estrogen dominance factor. Okay. The second gut hormone connection is cortisol. Okay. So how does cortisol made in the adrenal glands, how is cortisol affecting the gut, or how does that even work? Let me tell you. So chronic stress affects gut health through the gut-brain axis. When you have high cortisol and stress, that's causing the high cortisol, it causes decreased secretory IgA. So secretory IgA is decreased, and your mucosal immunity is weakened. Stress reduces gastric acid. So the acid that's released in your stomach, stress reduces that gastric acid, and it lowers your release of digestive enzymes. And the third thing that stress does is it impairs motility in your gastrointestinal tract. And what that leads to is symptoms of bloating. It leads to dysbiosis, which is an overgrowth of harmful bacteria and other bugs and not enough good bacteria. And stress also leads to, or can lead to, intestinal permeability. Okay. So gut inflammation then activates pro-inflammatory cytokines that we talked about, which then stimulate that hypothalamic pituitary axis and lead to an increase in cortisol output. And high cortisol then leads to increased belly fat, sleep issues, insulin resistance, and even depletion of progesterone, because progesterone is a precursor for cortisol. So the cortisol, your body thinks, okay, I need to produce more cortisol. I'm under more stress, and it steals the progesterone to make cortisol instead of releasing it over to the body. Okay. So a quick little science pearl, remember that, again, 70% of your immune cells live in your gut. So inflammation there doesn't stay there. It actually becomes systemic and affects the whole system. Okay, let's talk about the third gut hormone connection. So how else is your gut connected to hormone function? Well, the next one is thyroid. So your gut is connected to your thyroid, and let me tell you how. The thyroid gland that's in your neck makes mostly T4. This is an inactive form of a thyroid hormone, which is fine. That's how it's meant to be done. And about 20% of that inactive T4 is actually converted to T3, which is the active form in your gut via the deionidase enzymes. Okay, so again, The inactive thyroid hormone is converted to active thyroid hormone, about 20% of it, in your gut by these enzymes. Dysbiosis or inflammation, so not having the good bacteria, having a lot of bad bugs in your gut, or inflammation causes decreased enzyme activity, which then causes lower T3, right? Lower conversion of that T4 to T3. That gives you symptoms of low thyroid, which are symptoms like fatigue, cold intolerance, even depression, and hair loss can be seen with low thyroid. So there is there's some data to say that women with Hashimoto's also often show signs of intestinal permeability and gut-based nutrient deficiencies like selenium and zinc. Okay, so that's a little clinical pearl for you. So what else? The fourth connection with your gut, hormones and gut, that we want to cover today is insulin. So insulin is really important for your blood sugar metabolism. And so gut bacteria influence how sensitive your body is to insulin. And they do this through the short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which reduce inflammation and stabilize glucose. Well, how do they do that, right? Short chain fatty acids, like butyrate, improve insulin sensitivity and stimulate gut hormones like PYY and GLP-1 that then go on to regulate appetite, insulin secretion, and metabolic rate. Okay, really important. Loss of these beneficial microbes is linked to metabolic syndrome, which long-term affects your diabetes rates, blood pressure, weight gain, so many hormonal things that are affected. Okay, so again, poor microbiome diversity causes increased lipopolysaccharides that are let through, causes an inflammatory response that then causes insulin resistance, inflammation, and PCOS symptoms. Okay, so what does that look like in life? What do these hormonal balances cause in terms of symptoms? I think you probably were able to already pull out these symptoms as I was going through each big system, but let's just review. So in terms of common symptoms of having potential gut hormone imbalances, digestive symptoms like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, even reflux, right, can mean that low stomach acid, food sensitivities, and maybe sluggish transit of food. Hormonal symptoms could be acne, especially acne around the jawline, symptoms of PMS, symptoms of like heavy periods. You can have fatigue, you can have mood swings, or even poor stress resilience. You can have weight gain or inability to lose fat as another symptom that your hormones and your gut are out of sync. Something in your gut is affecting your hormones. So what's really going on in your gut when all of this is happening? There are 5 big changes that are causing all of this that are important for us to understand, because knowing the symptoms that they're causing may clue you into what's happening for you. So as we go through this, you might say, oh, okay, this sounds like something I'm doing or something I'm experiencing. And then we'll go through what you can change and how you can improve this. So 5, big things that are happening that then are giving you symptoms. And we'll go over what symptoms those can be. So increased intestinal permeability, low stomach acid, dysbiosis, sluggish motility and bile flow, and that estrobolome disruption. Okay, so increased intestinal permeability. The increased intestinal permeability is triggered by something in your environment. So something in your environment is causing that permeability to happen. And what are these triggers? These triggers are things like NSAIDs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like Motrin or ibuprofen. They're triggered by gluten. Big trigger is stress. Okay, and toxins. All of these increase a protein called zonulin. So zonulin is a protein that increases tight junction permeability. So how does that work? Zonulin opens up the tight junctions between your intestinal cells, which allow the contents of the intestine to seep through, and then activate the immune system. So instead of your body just taking the things that it wants to, it allows inflammatory things to come through those tight junctions. And then that causes an immune response. Your body recognizes these things that have seeped through as foreign. It triggers an immune response, which causes an inflammatory response. Cytokines are released by the immune system and disrupt sensitivity of hormone receptors like insulin, thyroid, and progesterone. Huge deal. What else? Low stomach acid. So what's low stomach acid? Low stomach acid, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's where you eat food. Every time you eat food, your body naturally releases stomach acid to help you digest, to start, not necessarily start, your digestion starts in your mouth, but to continue that digestive process. So low stomach acid can be an issue. It's common after age 35 and with chronic stress. So just aging and chronic stress already put us at risk for having low stomach acid. So what does low stomach acid do? It leads to then poor absorption of protein, which then causes fermentation. So the food, what is that fermentation? The food that you're supposed to absorb, that protein that you're supposed to absorb, actually sits in your gastrointestinal tract and travels to be excreted. Well, the bacteria that are in there start to try to digest it or ferment it, and so that causes more bloating, right? That protein should have been absorbed, but it's not, and so it's causing more bloating, and it also is causing poor digestion. And because of this, you have worse absorption of iron, zinc, and B12. Okay, and what does that look like in terms of symptoms? In terms of symptoms, it looks like fatigue, again, poor progesterone, and potentially poor or affected thyroid function. Okay. So, what else is happening in your gut? The other thing that's happening is that dysbiosis that we talked about. So, overgrowth of those pathogens and reduced good strains of bacteria in your gut allows yeast and other microbes to grow in there. Instead of being excreted and killed, yeast produce acetaldehyde, and ammonia, two compounds that mimic estrogens and burden your liver. So because of that dysbiosis, those compounds are produced, and what that leads to is symptoms of brain fog, fatigue, even skin flare-ups, and joint pain. And so this lack of microbial diversity causes a reduction in that short chain fatty acid synthesis, which then also causes an impaired gut lining. Short chain fatty acids are very protective for the gut, and if they're not made, that impairs your gut lining, which then again allows that intestinal permeability, which then causes the immune system to get triggered, and even affects neurotransmitter production. So again, a big deal. What else is happening in your gut? Sluggish motility and sluggish bile flow. So we talked about that. There's this whole enteric nervous system that controls the bile flow and controls the motility in your gut outside of the central nervous system. So sluggish motility and slow bile flow are linked to hormonal changes. So when do your hormones change? In perimenopause, especially. So those shifts in estrogen and progesterone cause a reduction in bile flow, which makes it hard for your body to absorb fat soluble vitamins and excrete hormones. And so this is another thing that's happening in your gut. And then last but not least is that estrobolome disruption, where that estrogen is instead of being excreted, because of the dysbiosis and the bacteria being there, more bacteria being there that have that beta glucuronidase enzyme gene, that estrogen is, instead of being excreted, it's reabsorbed, leading to estrogen dominance symptoms. Okay, well, we know what's happening. We figured out how the hormones in your gut are connected. What are we going to do about it? A lot of times, healing your gut is a complicated thing, and it takes a lot of patience, a lot of time, and there is a lot that you can do, which is the nice thing, that you can do so much to heal your gut already. So let's talk about how to heal it, how to restore it. I'll give you a step-by-step roadmap to really heal your digestion, heal your metabolism, and really reclaim your energy from the inside out. Okay, I will review 6 phases of restoring your gut. There are many different systems. This is just one approach or one way. A lot of them really have similar steps or outlines or pieces that fit together. It's a way to really address all of these underlying causes to really help. Um, you can get gut testing, so you can do a stool test to really see where you are. That requires working with a practitioner. It requires expensive testing. We're going to talk about things that are free that you can start doing today, that are really great and really can help heal your gut. Okay, and we'll talk about testing as well. You can get testing if you do all these things and still you're having symptoms, then potentially working with a practitioner. Or if you're in a place where you feel like, I don't want to do this by myself, I want somebody to guide me, great time and place to work with a practitioner that's knowledgeable in gut health, that can really take you step by step. Today, like I said, we're going to talk about stuff that seems so simple. I would say it seems like, how could it possibly, doing these things, affect my hormones, affect my thyroid, my cortisol? But we know, we just went through how these things are connected, how the gut is connected. And so you would be surprised how small changes like this really can make a positive impact. Okay, let's jump in. So phase one, or stage one, or step one: optimize digestion and your nervous system. So before we start talking about gut bugs and probiotics and all of that and protocols, we want to talk about your nervous system and how you are actually breaking food down. Okay, digestion isn't just what we eat, it's how we eat it and how it's absorbed in our body. Step one is all about creating the right environment for your food to be absorbed. Okay, so what can you do? Chew your food. It's free and easy. Chew your food. We tend to like chew twice, chew 3 times, and swallow. You want to chew your food to help your body digest it and break it down. We need to chew our food so that it helps release the digestive enzymes in our mouth and then in our stomach as it prepares to receive that food. What else can you do to really help optimize digestion and help tell your nervous system that you need to be in rest and digest? Take a few deep breaths before eating your meal. Sit down to eat your meal and eat in a calm setting. What else? If your digestion feels sluggish, you can take a little bit of apple cider vinegar or digestive bitters to help you digest your food. So, what are digestive bitters? Well, first of all, the apple cider vinegar, there's some data saying that apple cider vinegar, a small amount, helps your stomach acid be released and helps you digest your food. Digestive bitters are a similar thing. So, you can take that as a capsule as you're changing your diet and really incorporating foods into your diet, or you can just eat the food. So digestive bitter foods include artichoke, they include cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, which are really great. What else you can do? If really you're feeling like your digestion is sluggish, you can take digestive enzymes temporarily as you work on rebuilding your gut, as you work on helping your body digest. Because if you can't digest it, you can't absorb it, and therefore you can't use it. So chew your food, sit down, incorporate some digestive bitters with your meals to tell your body to start to secrete that acid, and decrease stress is going to be a big one. Okay. The next step is removing gut irritants. Okay. So I can talk about gut irritants for like 10 days. There are so many, but we're just going to start with the big ones present in our food. Of course, we can build up and add more, but it just, we can talk about glyphosate. We could talk about non-toxic pans. We can talk about plastic versus glassware, for, stored food, microwaving, microplastics. I mean, literally, I can talk about it all for hours, and I would feel overwhelmed and you would feel overwhelmed. So let's start with removing gut irritants in that can potentially be already present in our food. So what am I talking about? Common irritants that we consume include seed oils, alcohol, sugar, dairy, and gluten. And gluten and dairy being kind of the two biggest ones. And dairy tends to be present in so many foods. You would be surprised. If you check the label, dairy is often present in so many foods. It's kind of hard, or really hard. I don't want to say impossible, but really hard to eliminate dairy. So you don't have to eliminate anything. You don't have to do any of this, but just be aware that these foods can be giving you symptoms. A free thing to do instead of getting testing. So of course you can get testing, you can get a stool test and already know what's irritating your gut lining. But if you don't have the ability to do gut testing, or maybe you want a place to start, you can eliminate one of these things for 4 to 6 weeks. It doesn't have to be forever, and see how you feel. Monitor your symptoms. Do you have less bloating? Do you have less constipation or more? Do you have less diarrhea, etc.? And so monitor your symptoms and see how you feel. How's your energy? How's your brain fog? How's your mood? And then reincorporate the thing that you eliminated and see how you feel. Do you feel like now your brain is more foggy, or other things? Okay. So pick one thing, and see if you feel better without it, and then reincorporate it. So when I got stool testing, this is kind of a funny story. When I got stool testing, because I was having some symptoms and I couldn't figure out what it was, I came back as sensitive to gluten. And so the person I was seeing, I kind of wanted to be like, don't talk to me for a month. I literally was like, I'm not sensitive to gluten, even though my test says that I am. um, because I'm like, I'm eating gluten all the time. I feel fine. It can't be that it's gluten. And it's funny because, I didn't want to accept that. Okay. So just letting you know that it's possible to find that you feel better without gluten and still want to eat all the breads and the pastas. So that's me. Anyway, what else are we doing? When we decrease this inflammation, these gut irritants, we're also reducing histamine load and inflammatory triggers. So that again might mean that you have less symptoms, more clarity, and it's easier to rebuild your gut when you have less inflammation happening. Okay, it's kind of like a spring cleaning for your gut microbiome. Okay. Phase 3 is rebuilding the microbiome. So now that the gut is less inflamed, we're eating and chewing our food. Maybe we've incorporated some digestive bitters. We've played with, some gut irritants and are working on improving that piece. Now we can rebuild the microbiome. Okay, what does that look like? This phase is all about repopulating and increasing your microbial diversity. That means increasing the number of different microbes or bacteria that are living in your gut, right? The more diverse it is, the better it is for our health. Okay. So, what does that mean? That means eating things like prebiotics. So, what are prebiotics? Chicory root, asparagus, steel cut or rolled oats. So, not the little oatmeal packets that are, you peel and you pour in a cup and you microwave and done, right? You want the rolled oats or the steel cut oats that take a long time to cook. Why do they take a long time to cook? They're high in fiber, right? They're going to take a long time to cook. They're going to take a long time to go down through your gastrointestinal tract. They're going to feed your good bacteria. So it's a prebiotic. What about probiotics? Probiotics from real fermented foods like kefir or kimchi. You want to incorporate foods that then are going to help that bacteria that already have bacteria in them that are good for your health. So incorporating that as a probiotic, not just taking a probiotic, but actually starting to incorporate probiotic foods. And the next one is aim for 30 or more different plant foods per week. Yes, that's right. I said 30 or more different ones per week. So I think in episode 2, we talked about the five color challenge, right? Eating 5 colors a day. This is level 2 of that 5 color challenge, which is eating 30 plus different sources of plant foods per week. So over a 7-day period, that increases your microbial diversity. Okay. You could do it in a smoothie, get creative with it. I'm still working on this. Okay. And don't forget polyphenols. They're like super snacks for your good bacteria. So what are polyphenols? Think berries, turmeric, green tea, that really, like I said, are superfood snacks. So when your microbiome thrives, when your good bacteria is diverse and it's growing, everything else, your mood, your weight, your immune system starts to fall into place. Okay. So next phase is repairing your gut lining. This is the sealing and healing phase. Inside of your gut is covered in mucus that is protective, that, you know, it's not allowing everything to just kind of seep through. So healing this and sealing that gut mucus, like, I don't know if you've ever painted, you paint and then you put a sealant on top, right? Okay, so repairing your gut lining is the sealing and healing phase. Imagine your gut lining is like a cheesecloth, okay? When it's damaged, things leak through that shouldn't leak through. And so that means more inflammation, more fatigue, more brain fog, more food sensitivities, potential rashes, things like that. So something to definitely work on. So how do we repair our gut lining? L-glutamine fuels the cells of your gut lining. Zinc carnosine reduces inflammation and protects your mucosa. Collagen provides the structural building blocks for your gut lining, and soothing herbs like slippery elm and marshmallow root create that protective coating that calms irritation. So this combination is like a construction crew. It comes in and it really starts to repair that lining inside your gut. Okay, what else? The next step or phase is detoxification and elimination. So once your gut lining is intact, it's time to really literally take out the trash. So take out the trash, detoxification. It's not juice cleanses. It's about supporting your body's natural ways of eliminating toxins and things that it doesn't need, natural elimination pathways. So how do we do that? Magnesium citrate and flaxseed help keep things moving smoothly, right? Prevent that constipation. Allow food to move naturally and smoothly through your gastrointestinal tract. Bitter foods like dandelion greens or arugula stimulate bile flow, which is essential for digestion and liver detoxification. So, not only that acid production or acid release in your stomach, but also release of bile. So, really good. Dandelion does interact with a lot of medications. So, definitely check what medications you're on before jumping on the dandelion train. But arugula is something easy to incorporate in a salad. Okay. And don't underestimate the power of exercise or movement daily, walking, etc., because your lymphatic system depends on it. Okay. It depends on clearing out that waste. You moving, you exercising, your muscles contracting helps your lymphatic system move. Even things like stretches in the morning helps get things moving in the morning. So no stagnation is allowed. And this is all about getting your toxins out, helping your natural elimination system. And phase six. Phase six, you're not going to believe it. We're going to go full circle. And that means regulating your nervous system. So why? Because no matter how perfect your diet is, if your body is in chronic fight or flight, if your body is always in a level of high stress, it slows down healing. And so, what can you do? You could do a daily nervous system reset. Things like vagal toning. What is that? That means stimulating or finding natural ways to stimulate or turn on your vagus nerve. So, I don't know if you ever heard anybody humming to themselves. So, humming, singing, gargling, all activate that vagus nerve. What else can you do to regulate your nervous system? Regulating your circadian rhythm. So, what does that look like? Going outside within the first 30 minutes of waking, exposing your eyes and your face to the sun helps regulate your circadian rhythm and helps your hormones and microbiome. It's interesting. And of course, sleep. Sleep is a big one for regulating our nervous system. You can protect your bedtime, right? Make sure that you're getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Decrease stimulation, decrease screen time. You can track your heart rate variability and see how your heart rate variability is changing if you're changing all of these things, and how where you fall in the optimal range. So that would be with like a wearable. When your nervous system is regulated, your gut and your entire body can just exhale and function well. So again, cortisol, we know, wreaks havoc on so many things. And so regulating your nervous system, telling your body that it's safe, allows your gut to function really well. So if you've been trying to fix your gut with just probiotics, or maybe you've been on an elimination diet and you've eliminated everything and you still aren't feeling well, maybe it's because it's going to take more than that. It's going to take multiple phases, multiple steps. The 6 phases that we're talking about they're not easy, and they're not a quick fix either. They're really a roadmap for true lasting transformation. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that they're not going to take a minute. It's going to take longer to really reset everything. So let me dive deep. So today we covered gut permeability, estrogen metabolism, stress and cortisol, insulin, thyroid connection, all connected to your gut. We reviewed ways to heal your gut, working in the healing sequence, working on digestion, removal, rebuilding, repair, detoxification, and then regulation. The gut is not just where food gets digested, it's where hormones are activated, where they're regulated, where they're detoxified. And so if you're struggling with mood symptoms, bloating, maybe acne, maybe cycle changes, your gut might be the reason. And so begin with food, begin with digestion, begin with nervous system regulation, potentially, and then layer on as you go. Start there, change one thing, change one tiny thing, because tiny changes, they really do make a whole new you and give you a whole new health outcome. Be patient. So, as I said before, it doesn't take a minute. And you're going to say, well, how long does it take? Oh my goodness. So, really, we see that changing your diet and eating whole foods and increasing fiber in your diet can change your gut microbiome in as little as 3 days. 3 days. That's a big deal. That means that we see changes in your gut microbiome when you start to incorporate fiber in just 3 days. Healing your gut lining and then establishing a better microbiome can take 3 months, 8 months, 12 months to do. Why? Because we're constantly under stress, we're constantly exposed to toxins. And so it's going to take a longer time to help that bacteria grow, right? It's going to help a longer time to heal that mucus lining. If you eat, one time you sit down to eat and you chew your food and you're like, well, that's it. And then the rest of the time you're running around, eating on the go, stressed out all the time. Remember that that's a huge setback. So really working on it every day. One little change every day is going to help heal that mucus lining, heal the gut, etc. Okay. As you know, we have a tradition here on the Life Optimizer podcast where we leave each episode with a challenge. And this week's Life Optimizer challenge is for you to experiment with nervous system regulating things, whether that's meditation, whether that's deep breathing, progressive relaxation. Maybe it's taking a nap at lunch. That's an easy one. Maybe it's taking a 15-minute nap. Maybe it's starting to hum or sing, or maybe it's tapping, doing body tapping, some deep breathing. There are so many apps and so many resources. I challenge you to find a few. I maybe find 7, and every single day of the week, try one. Try one different one and see. You can say, well, this one feels super dumb, I'm not going to do this. Or you might say, like, humming is actually kind of cool. Like, I'll pick a song that I listen to on the way to work, and then just like every once in a while, it's like a song is stuck in your head and you hum it to yourself and you do feel calmer. So find ways that work for you, things that work for you. If you're like, I'm not going to sit on a yoga mat and, do yoga, totally fine. But find ways that work for you, whether that's saying a prayer before a meal, whether that's just closing your eyes, taking some deep breaths, or going for a walk. What is it that really helps you feel calm and helps you mitigate stress? Okay. What do I want to know what works. I want to know all the tips and tricks. So put them in your comments, because I want to know what's working for you, what you found maybe surprising. So come back to this episode once you've tried this stuff and really let me know. Or maybe something didn't work. I want to know that too, because I'm always looking for ways to help my nervous system to really decrease that stress response. And so, send them my way. comment in the comments and tell me what's working for you. And because I want to see your results and I want to hear what's working for you in terms of your gut restoration as you go on. Start with nervous system and then build from there. I'm so excited that we're on this journey together. Thank you for being here. Remember, tiny changes lead to a whole new you. I'm going to see you next week.